Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about the most recent news and this video that I found to be very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video by the boxing channel, of course, known as Boxing Ego, who I like to review here and there. But this is going to be the news, of course, about Mr. Gervonta Tank Davis and his next up and coming fight, which is allegedly confirmed to be against that of Frank Martin, which, in my view, is a very good fight. I wouldn't say that it's, of course, as good as the Shakur Stevenson or, Devin Haney fights, but it is what it is. I guess when it comes to Gervonta Tank Davis, you pretty much have to take what you can get. And don't get it wrong. I think that this is a very good fight. Frank Martin is a very decently talented fighter. But when it comes to Gervonta Tank Davis and, on my most recent pound per pound list of this year, there was a couple of people that asked me that, why don't you have Gervonta Tank Davis on your top 10 pound per pound list? Well, the reason why I don't have Gervonta Tank Davis on my top 10 pound per pound list, even though I think that in terms of talent, that he's top 10 potential worthy, the thing is about Gervonta Tank Davis is that I just don't think that he has the resume. And Gervonta Tank Davis, I believe, is turning 30 years old this year. And this dude right here, Frank Martin, who I believe is still a prospect and has never been a champion before, this is probably going to be the best all-around opponent that Gervonta Tank Davis has ever fought in his career. And certain people may, disagree with that, but, that's just my personal opinion on the matter. Not only do I believe that he's potentially going to be the most talented fighter that he's ever fought, but, when it comes down to it, well, I guess I can't say that he's the greatest opponent that he's ever fought because, there were opponents that, of course, accomplished more in their career. But the thing is that, the thing is about Gervonta Tank Davis, if I was going to compare it, say, for example, overall, like going to a restaurant, Gervonta Tank Davis is clearly, a star, and he's pretty much touted overall as a five-star level restaurant, who, and a lot of the LDBC and new media, especially new media, Boxing Ego and Dante's Boxing Nation and Aki TV, they keep trying to sell it overall as Gervonta Tank Davis is giving, the fans four-course meals. When in all reality, when it comes down to it, Gervonta Tank Davis, it's basically like going to a steakhouse when it comes down to it, but you pretty much just get the appetizers. Like Gervonta Tank Davis puts on some good appetizers. He puts on some decent fights against some fighters that you may know or might be relatively exciting, like Isaac Pitbull Cruz or Rolly Romero or Mario Barrios, but they're not the steak. They're not they're not overall, the main course. They're not the main banquet. It just is what it is. And once again, it's just very interesting that from Boxing Ego and Dante's Boxing Nation and that of Aki TV that you never really hear any criticism for Gervonta Tank Davis for not fighting Shakur Stevenson next, or not fighting Devin Haney next, or not fighting Teofimo Lopez, or not fighting Vasily Lomachenko when that fight was big several years ago between them. When it came down to it, he never gets any criticism for it. But then when it comes to Canelo Alvarez not fighting certain fighters, or especially right now not fighting David Benavidez, they're all up on his ass. And I also want to comment on this because I think I received a comment earlier today, and then, I receive comments like this every once in a while, where they say, oh, you just seem like you're hating on these guys, or you're just jealous, all this sort of stuff. Listen, the reason why I like to comment on Dante's Boxing Nation and Boxing Ego and Aki TV and some of these other LDBC and new media channels especially, is because you can tell that there's a clear racial undertone and a clear racial bias there, a clear agenda. It just is what it is. If you can answer me the question of why they criticize Canelo Alvarez to such a great degree for apparently ducking this fighter and ducking that fighter and ducking David Benavidez right now, and you might say, well, some of those criticisms are somewhat warranted, especially right now for him not fighting David Benavidez. And with the David Benavidez point, I would agree Canelo is going to have to fight David Benavidez. But how come Canelo Alvarez is getting so much criticism for not fighting David Benavidez, or not fighting Jamal Charlo at times, or not fighting Demetrius Andrade, but then Gervonta Tank Davis, when the big fights are also there with him against Shakur Stevenson and that overall of Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, when Gervonta Tank Davis does not fight any of them or seem interested in them, he doesn't get any criticism from these guys. It isn't even overall like he doesn't receive anywhere near the criticism, which of course would still be somewhat as bad. because they love to treat some of these fighters with the kick gloves on them when they love them. But Gervonta Tank Davis literally receives no criticism from some of these channels. Ego, Dante's Boxing Nation, and Aki TV literally don't seem to criticize him at all, or at least Ego and Dante's Boxing Nation from what I see. So once again, it's very clear that with a lot of their agendas that they very clearly have a pro-racial agenda. It just is what it is. And that's why I like to comment on it. But anyways, that being said, when it comes down to it, I do like this fight. I think that it's a very interesting fight. I think it's going to be the best and biggest fight of Gervonta Tank Davis's career. At least when you talk about a boxing talent, maybe around there with Ryan Garcia, maybe. Because I really don't know how good actually Frank Martin is. I don't think that he's ever been a legitimate champion before, unless I'm wrong about that. Of course, the belts are vacant now at 135. Maybe he captured one. I don't know. He does seem relatively talented, but to be fair, I haven't really watched much of him other than that one Rochelle Rivera fight, I believe, or whatever the hell that dude's name was. That one Dominican fighter that turned out to be a hype job in my view. And then these guys, these LDBC and new media channels, but Dante, especially in Aki TV, they love to promote these Dominican fighters when it comes down to it, especially because they're black Latin fighters. The thing is about Dominican fighters, out of all the other Latin countries, they're just they're not usually the highest in terms of boxing IQ or boxing ability. Not like the Puerto Ricans or the Cubans or the Cuban boxing school or some of the other ones. Not quite on that level. But it is what it is, at least not yet. But anyways, Boxing Ego, of course, is going to talk about it. Let's tune in.
Hey, yo, testing, is this thing on? Breaking news. It is now being reported that Gervonta Davis is going to get his next assignment. A black fighter by the name of Frank Martin. Where Errol Spence, hey, start that cat, man down. Man down promotions, Derek James' gym. Wow, what a fight. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more.
Some people are going to disagree with me on this, but this is, in my view, somewhat relatively similar to Canelo Alvarez fighting that Jaime Munguia. A fighter that, of course, is, very talented, somewhat. Now, I would say that Frank Martin, for his weight division, probably has superior boxing ability than that of Jaime Munguia. But I would also say that these guys are probably around the same level of class for their weight divisions. I would probably say that Jaime Munguia, at least after the John Ryder performance, would probably be an A- level fighter. I would say that Frank Martin probably is an A- level fighter because I don't know if there's enough about him to really prove that he's anything above an A- level fighter. It is what it is. But once again, both Canelo and Gervonta Tank Davis, they're eventually going to have to take that big fight that everyone wants to see. Canelo, of course, is going to have to take that David Benavidez fight, and Gervonta Tank Davis is going to have to take that Devin Haney fight very, very soon. And there's probably going to be a lot of pressure on him overall, especially if Devin Haney is able to beat Ryan Garcia, which I predict more than likely that he's probably going to. But we'll see. We'll see. And some people overall might say, well, it seems like you don't criticize Canelo Alvarez quite as much right now for fighting David Benavidez, and how come that is? Well, the thing is about Canelo, and like I've stated before when I compared it to a 5-star restaurant that, apparently serves steak. The thing is, at least with Canelo Alvarez, is that I know, at least that he's shown me in the past, that eventually he's going to serve you that, that steak. He's going to serve you that main, meal. Gervonta Tank Davis, once again, he pretty much brings in the appetizers and he brings on some very appetizing fights, but he's never really brought in a fight that, in my view, was really the main meal. It just is what it is. Canelo Alvarez, whatever you want to say about him, Canelo has fought Lara, he's fought Danny Jacobs, he's fought Golovkin, he's fought Cotto, he's fought, Saunders, he's fought Plant, he's fought all those guys. He's fought a lot of guys. He fought Mayweather back then. Now, of course, he lost the fight, and of course he lost to Bivol as well, but at least, he got in the ring against those fighters. So Canelo Alvarez has shown me time and time again that, although not every single fight is going to be, that steak that everyone wants, when it comes down to it, at least Canelo Alvarez, is going to bring something that, could be very close to it, if not that of the main meal. Gervonta Tank Davis, I don't know if he's ever really had a fight that, in my view, other than that of the Ryan Garcia fight. And when I'm talking about the main meal, I'm talking about a fighter that can actually box. I'm talking about a fighter that, could actually be an A-grade worthy level opponent. Now, in terms of Ryan Garcia, that of course was a, a 5-star meal. That of course was because everyone was asking for that fight. It was an entertaining spectacle. But for those of us that are boxing aficionados, we all know that Ryan Garcia was not going to defeat Gervonta Tank Davis because Ryan Garcia just has way too many flaws in his style. But it is what it is. And don't get me wrong, that's not me trying to hate on that fight or anything like that. I think that that fight was needed, especially at that moment, because it was building up for the past several years. And then, it pretty much was the perfect time for it to happen. But at the end of the day, we all knew who Ryan Garcia was. Ryan Garcia is not a guy that is going to be ever an elite level pugilist. He's just not going to be that guy.
Boxing. It is now being reported from ESPN and others that Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis, aka Abdul Wahid, is going to be fighting Frank Martin sometime during the summer. Now, as of me recording this video, this has not been confirmed by anybody. And I got to stress that because when we're talking about Tank Davis, the face of boxing, when we're talking about Canelo Alvarez, the alternate face of boxing, it's between those two people. And at the end,
Well, Gervonta Tank Davis, I think, is very close to being potentially the face of boxing. But like I said, I can't really have him there. At least as of yet, I would still have to have Canelo Alvarez at least at the number one pound for pound spot in terms of a face of boxing because Canelo Alvarez still brings in a lot of numbers. Now, of course, is there any recent numbers that Canelo has done, at least overall within the past year or two, I believe, that have brought in over 1 million pay-per-view buys, like the Gervonta Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight? No, not necessarily, but once again, I can't say that you're the face of boxing just because you did one pay-per-view when it comes down to that did very, very well, or did great, that did tremendous numbers, over 1 million pay-per-view buys, because all the other amount of pay-per-view buys that Gervonta's gotten in his career has been not even 300,000. So that's why I say, these guys want to say that now Gervonta's the face of boxing, blah, blah, blah. Right, but had that fight not been against Ryan Garcia, that fight overall, like, had he fought, someone overall, like, who the hell was that guy that they were that undefeated Mexican guy overall that they were trying to get him to fight at 135. I can't remember what the hell his name was. But anyways, when it came down to it, had he fought that guy, it would have done nowhere near 1 million pay-per-view buys. Okay, so it is what it is. So these guys, will try to play it off overall like Gervonta was, the main part in that, and he debatably was, but Ryan Garcia also was a very big part of that. Okay, so it is what it is.
the day, there's been so much speculation, so much opinion, so much conjecture, so many people doing fake detective work and guesswork and things like that to the point of who these guys are going to be fighting that I really don't feel safe until I hear it from the fighter. Boxing.
I definitely agree with that, and that's one thing that I'll give Ego credit for. I've already stated this in the past that Ego, even though he clearly also has a certain level of bias, that he in my view is probably the best new media channel out there. Now, of course, some people might say overall, that basically means that you're the nicest robber or you're the nicest thief, But at the end of the day, when it comes out, or the tallest midget. But at the end of the day, Ego, I still think brings up a lot of good points in his videos. I just think that he gets a little bit too emotional and a little bit too racially tied in my view. But it is what it is. But when it comes down to it, overall, that is one thing that I'll give Ego credit for. I don't usually see him announce a lot of fights, at least from what I've seen. Overall, like what a Dante will do or some other channels will do, overall, and then they have no information about it whatsoever, or they have no actual facts.
Has proven to be corrupt. Boxing.
And, there's always a lot of sources that say that this is going to happen. Of course, we heard, that source about Canelo Alvarez stating that, he's thinking about fighting, Jamal Charlo next and then, Terrence Crawford. And who knows, potentially that could have been true. Maybe that was Canelo's way, of seeing maybe what people thought about the Crawford fight. But I don't know if I'm really believing that because Canelo always seemed very dismissive of the Crawford fight in the first place, at least as of recent, because he always believed that there was really nothing, for him to gain there. And he's correct.
Has proven to be unreliable, or actually, I can't even say boxing. Some of the people in boxing have proven to me to be treacherous. Like you see a bunch of YouTube content creators and these video drops, and it's about stuff you've never even heard of. No one else is reporting the same storylines. You have people doing a bunch of guesswork. You have people who are lying. You have people who are paid off. Whatever their situation is, it is looking very treacherous. So, really, I will not be happy as a content creator and boxing journalist until I hear it from the horse's mouth, Gervonta Davis, Frank Martin.
I agree.
However, if you guys follow me on Instagram, and if you're not, you should, at Boxing Ego 1. I had just posted this Ego Weight Watchers of Frank Martin, and he's looking dialed in. He looks like he's training hard, right? And
It's going to be a very interesting fight for however long it lasts. If it ends up going to a decision, Frank Martin may potentially get the decision. I'm not quite sure because I can't really tell Gervonta Tank Davis. I can't really tell where he really is in his career right now. I can't really tell if he, is the same elite boxer that once upon a time I thought that he was, or if he's starting to go a little bit downhill, or maybe some of these fighters are giving him a little bit more problems than what I thought. Because to be honest with you, I haven't really seen Gervonta Tank Davis put on a super great, sharp performance ever since the Mario Barrios fight. That was the last fight where I thought that Gervonta Tank Davis looked really good and really sharp. I thought that, to be honest with you, against the Hector Garcia fight, I'm guessing that he carried him, but, in the Hector Garcia fight, the Rolly Romero fight, and also that even in the Ryan Garcia fight, I to be honest with you, I wasn't really impressed with any of those performances. Now, of course, he ended up, I believe, getting the stoppages in all of them, but to be honest with you, I thought that he was losing the majority of the rounds in the Rolly Romero fight, and that's very possible that he was carrying Rolly. He was losing, I thought, the majority of the rounds in the Hector Garcia fight. I also thought more than likely that he probably was going a little bit easy on him, or at least, carrying him a little bit, but I don't know. That's why this fight's also going to be a little bit interesting, but I expect Gervonta Tank Davis to more than likely be a better version of himself. We'll see.
he looks brolic. He's been training like a
But
monster
Gervonta Tank Davis sometimes, I think, goes a little bit too much for the knockout. He's got to be careful.
for some reason, right? He just looks like he's training like viciously, right? And I've been keeping tabs on it and keeping an eye on it. I've seen Gervonta Davis, who's doing he's doing his training, etc. So I'm like, okay, something's up. Frank Martin also dropped some clues like, hey, I got the call and I'm coming back soon and things like that. So if he got the Tank Davis fight, that's huge. And that's a big fight. Big fight. So if this news gets confirmed, I'm going to be very happy for Frank Martin because that's one thing I've seen about PBC. The great thing about PBC is if you know your role and you play your role and you stay patient and you keep doing your thing, preferably winning, but even if you don't win, but you put up a valiant effort, the opportunities will come. We've seen it previously. Guys like Sean Porter, he didn't necessarily win all of his fights. Some of them were razor thin and close,
I would somewhat agree with that. The PBC and Al Heyman does seem to somewhat take care of its fighters.
but he still kept getting opportunities. He was fighting Kell Brook, lost to Kell Brook, and then he has bounce back opportunities to fight Adrian Broner, the problem, the can man. He had opportunities later to fight Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia, and then Errol Spence as well, and Ugas. So when you're a fighter in that same cloth, win, lose, or draw with PBC, they'll bring you back. And I really like that because I really look at some of these other promotions, and as soon as they lose, like a fighter loses, sometimes the promotions drop the fighter or they just really play the background in a tremendous way. And you don't, it's almost like you don't even hear about them anymore. Like,
I would somewhat agree with that. PBC overall does usually do a very good job in terms of even getting some of their lower tier fighters repeated fights, like that of a Mario Barrios, for example. Mario Barrios, of course, ended up getting stopped against Gervonta Tank Davis, and, who knows, you may have never potentially heard about him again, but, he ended up getting a shot against Keith Thurman. Of course, he lost, but then, of course, he got the shot against Yordenis Ugas, a broken down Ugas, but still an Ugas nonetheless, and he was able to get the unanimous decision, I believe, and now, who knows, he may even potentially have a chance at one of the vacant welterweight titles. So, you never know.
the top ranked dude that kept bringing the pillow, Greer, I think his name was. I don't even know what's up with his career. Like, he had this whole like little gimmick with the pillow, and putting people to sleep. And I can't even tell you when the last time he fought is. I don't know if he's with Top Rank. He just almost disappeared. So I like that PBC does that. Whether you win, lose, or draw, as long as you're being patient, the opportunities will come. And that's what happened with Frank Martin. He took the other challenges like the Artem Harutyunyan. A lot of people criticized that performance. I thought he clearly won the fight. He almost stopped the man. That was a Olympian as well, and he battered his face.
The big question is about Frank Martin in this fight, in my view, and it appears that he has a little bit of power, but I'm just not sure if he has destructive power. The thing is about Frank Martin is that I'm gonna wonder. I have no doubt that he's gonna be able to win some rounds in this fight. But what's really gonna happen when Gervonta Tank Davis starts to cut off to the ring, starts to go to the body a little bit, and really starts to really try to crack your ribs? What's gonna happen? Are you gonna retreat, or are you actually gonna fight back? Because in order to beat someone like a Gervonta Tank Davis or a Canelo or someone like that, someone that is a clear A grade level boxer, or A grade level talent, and someone that has that level of power, you're gonna have to be willing to crack back at him. Just like Bevo did against that of Canelo. Will he be able to do that? We'll see.
And he took the dangerous fight with the.
This is also gonna, depending on how Gervonta Tank Davis looks here, because Frank Martin is gonna be a serious opponent that he's gonna have to take a little bit more seriously. He's not gonna be able to carry this dude like he was able to carry Rolly Romero or Hector Garcia, assuming that he actually was carrying those fighters. But we'll see.
The fake Ali dude, Michelle Rivera, and Frank Martin.
Agreed. In my view, a lot more hype than what he was substance.
Martin's just kind of been paving that way. Errol Spence helping guide him in his career and things like that. Same thing with Gervonta Davis. This is a rightful move. Gervonta Davis just fought Ryan Garcia, did $1 million plus. He then had some legal trouble that sidelined him, and Gervonta Davis has taken the rest of 2023 off after that moment. Had to sit down, 60 days in jail, then be on some kind of GPS monitoring, ankle monitor, and it looks like that recently came off. I did a video about that, which is why you, as a boxing fan, need to subscribe to me, because I made a video about all these things to keep you guys in line and keep you guys up to date with what's going on in the world of boxing. So Gervonta Davis, he looks like he's a free man again. He can move around freely, no ankle monitor. I'm hoping this news is true, and the only reason I'm saying hope is because as of me recording this video, I'm promptly recording the video, and we haven't heard from Gervonta Davis yet. Now, as a longtime fan of both fighters, Frank Martin and obviously Gervonta Davis, the face of boxing, this is a great fight. Great stylistic.
You notice how Boxing Ego and Dante's Boxing Nation, how all these channels, they keep having to say the face of boxing overall literally 100 times with each and every video. Once again, it's like they're basically trying to... it's like if they believe that they say it enough times that eventually you're going to start to believe it. And once again, Gervonta Tank Davis is very close to being the face of boxing. And if you personally believe that, that's up to you. But like I said, I just can't put that there right now, because I think that Gervonta Tank Davis, I just don't think that he has enough confirmed numbers, or at least as consistently over the past several years as what a Canelo Alvarez does. I can't really put you as the main face of boxing when you only had one great sale. I mean, that would basically, just in my view, basically say that someone overall is the main face face of, say, a certain company, or comparing companies. And say overall that someone overall ended up winning that year because, they had the highest peak month of that year in terms of sales, or in terms of views, but then then when it comes to the average of all the other months, they pretty much blow them out of the water. So, I mean, I can't, say that yet.
Matchup, Gervonta Davis can box, he can bang, he's a complete fighter, and he's a superstar. So anytime he steps in the ring, he has something to lose, because he is the superstar. Some people, he's entered that Floyd Mayweather realm where some people want to support you and they love you, but then there are a fraction of fans that they're paying hoping you lose, and they don't
Agreed. Canelo Alvarez overall deals with a lot of the same things, especially from you guys.
miss out on it. Frank Martin is a very dangerous opponent. He's technical. He's a southpaw, and he's a black fighter, which we'll get to in a second. And in addition to that, he's just patient. He picks his shots well, and he's undefeated. Taking a fighter's O is always harder. When you have an undefeated fighter, I've always heard it. I forgot exactly what boxer said it, but they don't know how to lose. That fighter doesn't know how to lose. They've never tasted defeat. Not saying as an amateur they didn't taste the defeat, but if they're a pro fighter, they're going to be as confident as they're going to be with that unblemished record. So
I agree.
Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis both being undefeated, somebody's O has to go. It's an incredible fight. And let's talk about some of the negative Nancy's. Let's talk about some of the haters. You had so many people speculating as to who Gervonta Davis would be fighting. You had people who were lying. People at times have said Gervonta Davis is fighting Abner Mares. He's fighting Campbell Hatton.
I remember at one point in time, Gervonta Ting Davis and, Abner Mares, I believe at one point in time they were supposed to fight. But then I think Abner Mares ended up pulling out, I think because he had a cataract or something like that. And it's good because Gervonta Ting Davis, he probably would have knocked the eyes right out of his skull.
You had people who said, oh, he's fighting Conor Benn. And a lot of these idiots,
I knew damn well that that wasn't going to happen. I mean, anyone can fucking tell you other than Dante's idiot-ass nation. Anyone can tell you overall besides those idiots overall that that fight was not going to happen. I mean, come on, who actually believed that?
They pushed fake narratives for clickbait and make content knowing that it's a wasted content. This is not evergreen content like the Conor Benn situation. I very rarely will make multiple videos about stuff that I know is definite cap. Like, people got gassed because Conor Benn was calling out Gervonta Davis and Eddie Hearn was talking about, oh, we sent him an offer. I ain't making videos about that. I knew exactly in my head that Tank was trolling them. Conor Benn's a welterweight. He should be fighting people who are welterweights. Fight Jaron Ennis or whoever else that the UK has to offer or whatever. And that's that. You think the A side gets offered to by Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn? But again, you have people. Hello, Moto. People who amplify these stupid.
Well, I somewhat agree over what Boxing Ego is saying, but I mean, at times the A side could potentially be offered something. It depends on the context that they put it in, though. If Eddie Hearn, of course, was trying to make it seem overall like Conor Benn was the A side, then I get it. But once again, I never believed that in the first place.
Fake narratives, and then when Eddie Hearn does an interview, oh, Tank Davis turned down our offer. Tank Davis doesn't want to fight Conor Benn, and Conor Benn's like, leave me alone, never mention my name again. People buy it. Oh, Tank's ducking, and then all to look stupid because Gervonta Davis already had a fight that was likely in negotiations, and
well, he very well overall could have turned down the Conor Benn offer, but either way, I'm not really going to go too far into that because I mean, Eddie Hearn, he gets up to his little tricks as well. I'm sure overall that maybe the deal wasn't enough. I don't know. Maybe it was. Who knows? But when it comes down to either way, Gervonta Tank Davis, he's the A side. He gets to stipulate his actions. And, he probably overall had other plans. So I'm not really too worried about that. And, of course, Conor Benn is a legit welterweight to 154-pounder. Gervonta is around on, 135-pounder. In terms of weight-wise, he might be able to fit at 140 somewhat decently well, but he's really a natural 135-pounder.
It's a quality fight, and it's a dangerous fight. Now, another thing that people say, we're just going through the list, people. Buckle up, get your popcorn, brush your teeth, and you're now rocking with Ego. The other thing people...
How are you going to get your popcorn and brush your teeth at the same time?
said was Gervonta Davis is afraid of black fighters. I've heard it all. They said, oh, Tank...
Right, well, here's the thing, Mr. Boxing Ego. The thing overall that you've been saying about Canelo Alvarez for years upon years is that he's not fighting elite level black fighters or he's not fighting guys that are an actual threat to him. So how come Gervonta Tank Davis doesn't get any of this criticism and he's not fighting Shakur Stevenson, he's not fighting Lomachenko, he's not fighting Lopez, he's not fighting that at Devin Haney, he's not fighting any of them. He didn't fight Josh Taylor when he was undisputed. He didn't fight Regis Prograis. He didn't fight any of those guys. So how come Gervonta Tank Davis is not getting the type of criticism that you give Canelo Alvarez? I already know the answer, but it is what it is.
He doesn't want to fight against technical or slick black fighters. He's afraid of black fighters. I mean, what can they say?
Well, at the end of the day, name one slick black fighter that Gervonta Tank Davis really has ever fought. Name one. Other of course than this fighter right here, Frank Martin. Who's a very decent fighter, but also at the end of the day has never been a champion, and clearly once again is not on the level of Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. All right, and once again, I don't necessarily mind setup fights, even with what Canelo was doing right now, or even at times what Gervonta Tank Davis is doing. But it's like, dude, eventually, eventually, you're gonna have to get in the ring with that guy, man. It's like there's so many great names that Gervonta Tank Davis could have fought within the past, few years, if not even a little bit more, and he literally has not fought any of them.
Now, all the Tank haters who perpetuated these lies, if he fights Frank Martin, because Frank Martin embodies, he's dark skinned, you know what I'm saying? So he's black for show. He's a slick fighter, and he's a southpaw, and he has power, and he's explosive, and he has a great team and trainer with Derek James and, a support system with Errol Spence. He's always in shape, right? He had an amateur career. He sparred with Tank. Tank and Frank Martin have sparred in the past. So whatever they were able to pick up from each other with that. And it's a great everything on the line type of fight. And he's been making his...
Every fight you have something on the line. Everything in the fight you have something on the line. Especially when you're on the level of a Canelo or Gervonta Tank Davis or Tyson Fury or one of the top pound-for-pound fighters or one of the main faces of boxing. Everything is always on the line in every single fight that you're in. All right? So, all that, he can bring up all this fluff and muff all he wants to. At the end of the day, how come Canelo Alvarez and other fighters overall are getting criticism from you, but Gervonta Tank Davis is not getting any criticism for not fighting Shakur or not fighting Devin Haney or not fighting some of these other fighters? How come that is?
Path with great fights like Michelle Rivera was real impressive and the Artem Harutunian, right?
Once again, Michelle Rivera, very one-dimensional fighter.
So he's had these explosive victories and wins, and he keeps on trucking. And now this is moment to get a big fight. So where's all the people who are saying that Tank don't want to fight black fighters? This is the same thing that they did to try to embarrass Floyd Mayweather or make it look like Floyd was ducking smoke. They said Floyd didn't want to fight southpaws. Floyd didn't want to fight black fighters. And then he fought a Shane Mosley and he beat him. He beat a Birdo.
Well, the thing I'll say about the thing is about Floyd, and if we're comparing it to Gervonta Tank Davis, you can say whatever you want about Floyd. Now, if we actually are going to say one thing about Floyd, and it's very interesting that, none of these channels ever mention this. And I don't hold this against Floyd, but it's always just interesting because what you hear about Dante's Boxing Nation and all these other guys is that Canelo don't fight, great black fighters and all sort of stuff, and and they don't give credit to certain guys, for being in European divisions or, not fighting against black fighters, unless it's like someone like Floyd Mayweather or Andre Ward. Because if we're really going to go there, Andre Ward, how many great black fighters did he really beat in his career other than Chad Dawson? So, I mean, it is what it is, who I believe had to come down and wait for that fight. So it is what it is. And don't get me wrong, that's not me discrediting Andre Ward at all. It's just if you're going to keep those standards, then keep the same thing. Floyd also, by the way, how many all-time great black fighters did he really face within his career? Shea Mosley, and that's probably about it. I mean, he fought DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley and Zab Judah and, Lovamore Nadal, I believe, and, a couple of other black fighters. But those guys are not really all-time great black fighters. It is what it is, if we're going to go there. But I don't really hold that against Floyd because he fought a lot of fighters that pretty much were coming off of, a glamorous win in their career or pretty much the best wins in their career. No, they weren't always, black fighters that'd be looked up at as the Sugar Ray Leonard type or anything like that. But at the end of the day, he fought De La Hoya, he fought Cotto, he fought Mosley, he fought Canelo, he fought Ricky Hatton, he fought Jose Luis Castillo, he fought Marcos Maidana, he fought many, many names. The thing is about Floyd, whatever you want to say about him, Floyd fought many big names in his career, and he fought them when they were champions. That's one thing that I'll say about Floyd. thing is about Gervonta Tank Davis is that the criticism, in my view, is a little bit more warranted, a lot more warranted here because at least with Floyd, what you can say once again is that he's giving you that main banquet, he's giving you that steak. Gervonta Tank Davis is a dude to where it's like, dude, come on, like after a while, you're gonna have to get in the ring with that guy or one of these guys. Like, come on.
Explosive power guy at the time and stuff like that.
And
So
don't get me wrong, Frank Martin, is a very good fight. It's a great fight, especially compared to his most recent fights. But once again, the fights that everyone wants to see, Shakur Stevenson, probably Teofimo Lopez. But we'll see where Teo goes because we really don't know where Teo's at ever really, mentally, and we'll see from there.
it
And
just
of course, Devin Haney.
sounds laughable to hear what people make up. Now, the other thing that I find very interesting is the fact that
Right. Well, with Canelo Alvarez, apparently is a made-up overall that he doesn't like to fight black fighters. Even though he's fought Danny Jacobs, Araceli Lara, Austin Trout, Floyd Mayweather Jr., and and Jamel Charlo. But and don't get me wrong, he didn't fight Andrade, he didn't fight Jamal Charlo. Keep in mind that I believe Jamal Charlo turned on a contract at one point in time from Golden Boy, or that of Canelo Alvarez, and it never gets talked about. And the Andrade fight, of course, he was not interested in that fight. I think that he thought that he was a little bit too much risk for the reward. But keep in mind that Canelo has still fought many, or at least, a handful of very decent black fighters or A-grade black fighters, when they were pretty much at their best. Okay? Canelo Alvarez has done that. Gervonta Tank Davis, besides this upcoming fight, never fought any elite level black fighters. And apparently it's a lie when people say that Gervonta Tank Davis, that he doesn't appear to be too keen on facing that of slick black fighters. I'm just going to state this. Gervonta Tank Davis, or at least his team, whoever it is, they don't seem too keen on taking A-grade level fights, period. At least at the current moment in time. And that may not necessarily be because they're afraid of the opponents. Maybe it's just because they're trying to build up the fights. But either way, Gervonta Tank Davis is going to have to get in the ring with some of these guys soon. It is what it is. And that's why, once again, until he beats one of those guys, or someone that I think overall is at least a legitimate A-grade level champion, he probably won't grace my top 10 pound for pound list. And this is a great fight, but I'm not even quite sure if this fight is going to be top 10 pound for pound worthy, because Frank Martin, in my view, even for as good of a fighter as what he is, once again, he's never been a champion, and I'm not really sure how, proven he really is. But we'll see.
Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney just got confirmed for New York. Now, I don't know where this Tank fight would take place, but it's in or around the same time.
And I talk about Devin Haney quite often as well. Some people, of course, like they criticize Devin Haney, but at the end of the day, Devin Haney, what you'll say about him is that he's taking on a lot of the big fights. He took on Lomachenko. He took on that of Regis Prograis. He took on that of George Kambosos. He took on that of Jojo Diaz, who, of course, is not necessarily a mega fight. But, for the first 20-some fights in his career, taking on all those guys, that's a tremendous resume, especially for his age. Gervonta Tank Davis is turning 30 years old this year, and he doesn't have anywhere near the resume of Devin Haney. That's why, all these guys, like all these channels, when Lomachenko was debated as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, they were all stating this shit about overall how disrespectful it was that Lomachenko had so little fights, and they were debating him as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, and he doesn't have the, longevity and all sort of bullshit. Right, but it's not really about how many years you've been fighting or how many opponents you fought. It's about who you fought. And at the end of the day, Gervonta Tank Davis, when you talk about other fighters, like Devin Haney right now, I'm not going to say that he's lapping Gervonta Tank Davis, but if you wanted to argue it, you could.
Period. Like Devin Haney and Ryan are going to fight late April.
Because whatever you want to say about that, George Kambosos, Vasily Lomachenko, when he fought those two fighters, those guys were at least debatably two top 10 pound for pound fighters when he defeated them. I would say that they are more than likely probably top 15 to top 20 pound for pound fighters when he defeated them. But at least Devin Haney has fought those guys. And then on top of that, Regis Prograis, who probably would have been top 20 to top 30. Or at least on my list, top 25 to top 30. More than likely. So at least he's fought those guys. Gervonta's never even fought someone within the top 30 pound for pound.
And this fight is slated to happen in the summer, like possibly like June, right? So that's going to be interesting if the fact that Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney got announced yesterday for the Barclays Center in New York, and then now we hear this leak about Tank's fight and Tank's fight with Frank Martin. That means Tank's fight is a little bit further out, so you got plenty of time to promote. And I've already talked about this. I feel like Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney fight has been a little bit. It's like they almost hastily put it out, and they have less time with the fight happening April 20th. Some elements of it seem disorganized. Like people don't know if it's on pay-per-view. At least per the flyer, there's information that people are confused about. Some people even left me comments saying they bought tickets round trip to go to Vegas, thinking the fight was going to be in Vegas because that's where it was reported to be, and then now find out it's happening in New York. So there's little things like that versus when Tank Davis's next fight gets confirmed, I'm pretty sure the information will come out cleanly. It'll be
Not in the city where anything is possible.
be nice and smooth. Flyers, they'll do a press conference, and they'll resume training. You'll have the date. You're not gonna guess, like if it's in Vegas or if it's in Texas or wherever the fight's at. It's not gonna be no guesswork or location changes or anything like that. That's not even how PBC does business. They kind of just drop the mic and walk away. Now, lastly, since we're talking about the haters, we got to talk about this. When it comes to the haters, there are going to be some people that somehow, some way, try to continue to hate on Gervonta Davis and somehow suggest that this is a bad fight, that the Frank Martin, who is he?
Well, it's not a bad fight at all. Frank Martin overall is a very talented fighter, and he's a great up-and-coming prospect. But once again, that's the problem with a lot of these Gervonta Tank Davis fights, at least in my view. Don't get me wrong; they're still doing great numbers and all the other stuff. But that's that's why I can't have Gervonta Tank Davis within my top 10 pound per pound. I can't have you on my top 10 pound per pound list just because you're defeating prospects. For you to be on my top 10 pound per pound list, you have to defeat legitimate A-grade level fighters, A-grade level champions. You have to win belts, when it comes down to it. And Gervonta is a borderline top 10 pound per pound fighter, but he's definitely not definitively there like some of the other fighters there. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't have quite the accomplishments, in my view, to be there, at least with definitive belts, legitimate belts, not regular or interim belts or, overall, those type of championships, in my view. We'll see what happens. But as of right now, this is a very good fight, even a great fight. But once again, this is like going to a steakhouse. I mean, at least it got past the appetizer. Usually Gervonta Tank Davis just brings out the bread or brings out the salad. At least Gervonta Tank Davis, even though it's at a steakhouse and you'd want a steak, at least he's bringing you a cheeseburger. at least overall he's bringing you some food worth of quality here. It's a very good fight. It's a great fight. Is it the Shakur Stevenson fight? Is it the Devin Haney fight or Teofimo Lopez fight or anything like that? No, it's none of those fights. But at the end of the day, once again, we'll see where that goes.
Or it's going to do bad pay-per-views, or this is what old media is famous for, especially with PBC fighters and black fighters. They'll put out a poll like how many guys are going to order this fight. They'll try to guesstimate the live gate and the pay-per-view buy rate. And some people are going to even try to
Right, and you do the same shit overall with Canelo or some of the other fighters out there.
convince you that this isn't a good fight. So to all the people who are going to try to act like this is a terrible fight or a bad fight and all that, the easy counter is this. Shakur Stevenson was rumored, and then it was even announced that he was fighting against Frank Martin just last year. And everybody loved the fight. Shakur is a top talent. He's a silver medalist and Olympian, and everybody was gassed about the fight. Then they started picking sides, like who was to blame, because it was said that the money wasn't right and the fight didn't come into fruition. So that doesn't even make sense. How did everybody love the fight when Shakur was about to fight Frank Martin? But then some of those same people will now flip it and try to act like this is a bad fight now that Gervonta Davis got the fight with the PBC fighter. But
Same exact point that overall that I try to bring up with Canelo Alvarez when you guys overall try to state that about Billy Joe Saunders and overall that of Caleb Plant. You see the hypocrisy when it comes to these guys, when it comes down to it, how they try to stick up for their boy Gervonta Tank Davis and then they try to tear Canelo down or some of these other fighters down at any cost. Remember, Canelo when he fought Billy Joe Saunders and, that of Caleb Plant. Those were against weak European white boys, right? But then David Benavidez fought Caleb Plant, and it was going to be a 50-50 level fight, even though Caleb Plant had just suffered a knockout loss to that of Canelo Alvarez, when it came down to it, and then Billy Joe Saunders, against Andrade, it was going to be one of the biggest fights in boxing, and a great fight. Then Canelo Alvarez fights him a couple years later on, and it's a terrible fight. So please.
And a top-ranked fighter like Shakur Stevenson.
Now, don't get me wrong. This is a great fight in my view. I'm very excited for this fight. It's just not, in my view, overall the fight that, of course, a lot of people would want to see. But it's still a great fight, and I'd be very excited to see this.
Was in talks, or it was rumored that he was going to be fighting against Frank Martin, the PBC fighter. Everybody loved it. So, the haters gonna hate. At the end of the day, I find it funny. Shout out to Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin. I can't wait for an official announcement. Let me know what you guys think. YouTube will now show you some more videos so you can catch up with all your boxing news.
Well, anyways, that's pretty much about it for that video. I just thought that was very particularly interesting. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see where this fight goes. I do believe more than likely that it is going to be confirmed because it appears from a multitude of sources that this fight has gotten reached. We'll see where this goes. Frank Martin is a potentially dangerous fighter. I believe more than likely that Gervonta will eventually stop him, or at least, get him to kind of submit within the fight. But, we'll see what happens. Frank Martin is a legitimately talented fighter, and I would rank him probably as a legitimate A- level fighter. But we'll see. We'll see. This definitely, in my view, is the best fight in Gervonta Tank Davis' career. Now, I don't think that it's going to get quite the numbers as what a Ryan Garcia did. Because Ryan Garcia, of course, had the hype and he had the media around him. But Frank Martin, in my view, is a better boxer than what a Ryan Garcia is. So we'll see. But anyways, that's pretty much about it. That also being said, though, Frank Martin, although he might be a better boxer than Ryan Garcia, he also does not quite have the power of Ryan Garcia, although he does have decent power. But you know what? We'll see where this goes. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.